Hi, I'm Pastor Jim, and I just wanted to share my experience that I had at the Asbury revival this past week. My son James and myself were able to go, and I just wanted to share a couple things. Besides having to wait 45 minutes to get in, which I got to be honest with you, it was pouring rain, and we had driven quite a ways that day to get there. Uh, but I was just really wanting to check it out. I wanted to see what was happening at Asbury University on their campus. So we went. We had to wait for, like I said, we had to wait 45 minutes to get in. Pouring rain. This wonderfully nice gentleman. I believe it was a Pastor Peterson from Ohio. Lent us his umbrella. He shared with somebody else in his group, and so a shout out to him. Um, but we waited. But the closer we got to the building, you could just begin to hear, even through the rain, you could start to hear the singing and the worship. And it was just a blessed time, even waiting, because there was just like anticipation. And, and I just felt a strong spirit of the Lord there. Um, a week ago Wednesday, in fact, on the day that this move of God, I'll just call it a move of God, started in these college students' life, about 20 of them, churchleaders.com records this, about 20 of the students felt like they should stay, and within a few hours there were just hundreds who had came back, and the worship really hasn't stopped since. Um, that same day, let me just share this in about 2 minutes. That same day I was writing a sermon out of Haggai chapter 2, and it was entitled Rediscovering Holiness. And as I was writing that sermon, it started about 10 o'clock in the morning. The Lord just kind of spoke to me to go ahead and write. 10 o'clock in the morning, about the time their chapel starts, and it lasted till about 2 o'clock, so it was 4 hours. And in that 4 hour time, there were 2 or 3 or 4 times while I was writing this sermon that the Spirit of the Lord just became real strong on me, and I knew that God was doing something. I didn't know what. I had no clue, no idea that anything was happening at Asbury, but I sensed this and felt it in a strong sense, strong enough to tell my wife. The next day I was praying with a brother pastor of mine, Tim Pullen, and praying with him that a sanctifying spirit was being loosed, and we were going to agree on this, and we did that. Still didn't have any idea what was going on. The next day I got a text. Well, the next Thursday my son and I went, and like I say, we were anticipating to be there. And when we got there about in the building around 2 o'clock or so. And there's a couple or three things that I really noticed in my experience. Number one, this service was done decently and in order. From entering the building to an usher seating us, to the way it was conducted. There were different people worshiping God in different ways, for sure. I mean, some people were shouting, and some people were very quiet, and some people were, even some of the kids, most of the younger ones were just, they, at certain songs they had kind of a jump about them, and I thought that was really cool. And a lot of people were just, lifting up their hands or raising their hands. So really, praise and worship was just kind of personal, but everything was done in order. I didn't feel that at all in the service that the building was chaotic. Certainly powerful, very emotional and passionate, but not chaotic. It was done decently, and it was done in order. I would probably say that the favorite part of my experience at Asbury at this particular service were the testimonies of people. One, in the moment that I was there, one had come from Canada to testify, another from Oregon, another from Pennsylvania, and people testified about coming back to the Lord, or they testified about a healing, or they testified, about what God was saying to them, or sharing to them. And It was powerful, and I remember specifically when one testified about coming back to the Lord. Then an invitation was given for people there to stand up if they wanted to come back to the Lord, and they began to pray for people as they come back to the Lord. I remember one young lady who had stood up in the center section of the auditorium and just started weeping as people were praying. And then they were asked, again, politely, if they would like to, that they could step out from where they were and they could come to the altar, and there would be altar counselors there, people that would pray with them as they come back to the Lord. So I know some people think it's just about singing. It really wasn't. There was different other parts. Now, certainly on the quick post, you see all the singing and worshiping, and it was great. It was absolutely awesome. But I think the testimony may have been the favorite part. I love to hear the stories of the people who were touched by God. But another thing was that it was really led by the college students. It wasn't over professional. I've been in some great moves of God, works of God, the Promise Keepers, and other different things where and this is not a critique on the Promise Keepers. It was awesome ministry, but they brought in the best bands, and they had the best teams, and they had the best speakers, and all those. It was a larger venue. You know what I'm saying? It was done in arenas, and it was different. It was very professional, but this was different. This was led by the college students. God had moved in their heart. And there was something about their worship and something about their praise and something about their experience that had become magnetic. I mean, that was God, and it was drawing people, not only college students, but it was drawing other people just like myself. I would say probably the third thing that stuck out to me was that even though it wasn't professional in the sense that maybe sometimes I have been involved in a lot more professional type of ministry, there was something so dramatic about the fire of the love of God that was in people's hearts. It was pure. It was intentional. It was genuine. It was authentic. And now again, I'm not saying that there wasn't some, emotions. Some people really showed their emotions. Others were much quieter. But I would tell you, it was probably one of the most authentic, genuine experiences I've had. And I know that I am not even promoting Asbury. I'm not promoting whatever they might teach. I'm telling you about my experience when I was there. There was this sensation of a loosing of a sanctifying spirit that had been confirmed in my heart the morning that it began. God confirmed in my heart that there would be a loosing of a sanctifying spirit. Now, some of you may or may not know or understand what I mean when I say a sanctifying spirit. I mean a spirit that comes in and cleanses, comes in and delivers a person from even their want or their desire of sin. And as they're being delivered from that want and desire of sin, there is a capacity now to be filled by the fire of the love of God. It is as if it was Acts chapter 2 and verse number 4. There was this sense, that fear that people had, and many of the testimonies were this: I had a fear to step out, or I had a fear to change, or I had a fear to do this, but now with God's help and with God's love and with His power in me, I can do it. And that's exactly what happened in Acts chapter 2 and verse number 4. Peter he was lying to a teenage girl just a couple months before, but now Peter, that same Peter, filled with this transforming love of God, would preach a sermon and 3,000 would come to Christ in one day. So that was my experience. My favorite part was the testimonies, but what I couldn't resist was the love of God. I came there to check it out, and within just a few minutes, I said, I'm not here to check this out. I'm here to experience the love of God. Like these folks are experiencing the love of God. I prayed for many years for the loosening of a sanctifying spirit, and I believe that now I've seen it and experienced it. I don't believe that's the end of it. I believe it's going to be more and more in different ways, different venues, different capacities. But I'm praying for a continuing of this type of the love of God to transform people's lives. Thank you for joining me and listening. I would just say this. If you can go, go. But if you can't go, get in the Word of God. Spend some time with Him. Hear His voice and allow Him to transform you and fill you with His love. Thanks so much, and God bless.